Daredevil. And no, not the Ben Affleck one. Also, spoiler alert for all of you that haven't binged both seasons yet. Matt Murdock, blind lawyer and human lie detector, is a vigilante, the devil of Hell's Kitchen. The very concept of justice is based in the idea that law ought to be fair. This is why justice is personified as a blind woman holding scales and a sword, to weigh guilt and execute said justice. It's no coincidence that Matt Murdock is a blind lawyer that beats people up in his pajamas. The other element the show places significant emphasis on is the fact that Matt is a Catholic. The choice to name a Catholic superhero Matthew after the apostle and evangelist is quite apt. As a tax collector, Matthew would have a similar reputation to lawyers today. The Book of Matthew does quite a bit of commentary on greed and social justice. Matthew 25:31-46 sounds a whole lot like a justification for pro bono legal work, and Matthew 23:16 deals explicitly with corruption and blindness. In fact, the promotional material for the second season was heavily influenced by religious art, including Caravaggio, Michelangelo's The Last Judgment, and Rubens' Saint Sebastian, which echoes Claire's fears about Matt.
You know, the only thing I remember from Sunday school is the martyrs, the saints, the saviors. They all end up the same way, bloody and alone.
Whether it be divine law or man-made law, the central theme of Daredevil is justice. So let's get to it. Welcome to this Wisecrack edition on the philosophy of Daredevil. Part 1, Justice and Responsibility. Daredevil addresses a serious problem with justice, legal liability, whether or not a guilty party ought to be held responsible for their actions. Sure, it seems simple enough. Somebody goes on a killing spree, they deserve to be punished, right? But that narrative is complicated by one of the central questions in Daredevil. Are people responsible for their life situations? In Season 2, Nelson and Murdock attempt to use PTSD as a defense for Frank Castle, saying that Frank doesn't know the difference between right and wrong, and thus, he's not responsible for his actions.
Frank Castle is actually a good man. He doesn't know the difference between right and wrong anymore.
When little Frankie Castle balks at this,
It's an insult.
they reword their defense to sympathetic storming,
Mr. Castle is suffering from what we call sympathetic storming.
a diagnosis where the sympathetic system is on a heightened state of alert due to extreme trauma and emotional disturbance.
Frank Castle's been through hell.
Again, the idea is Frank Castle is not responsible for his actions. The show asks, is a person still to blame for their actions if they aren't free to choose the person they've become? Wilson Fisk is conditioned into a world of violence by his abusive father until he, well, snaps. Elektra is presented as an emotionless killing machine that can do nothing but murder because of her nature as the Black Sky.
This is who I am.
Elektra is literally predisposed to be evil, and a significant portion of the second season revolves around the question, can she exercise her free will to deny her destiny? Frank Castle has experienced the complete horror of war,
Lieutenant Frank Castle that I know is a hero.
only to return home and see his entire family violently gunned down. Can one really blame him for being vengeful? And then there's Karen. We've already seen her murder one person, and the show constantly hints at her mysterious dark past.
I did some digging into your past activities.
Do you really think this is the first time I've shot someone?
Karen has to believe that someone like Frank Castle isn't all bad, that he isn't defined by his deeds, because if he is, she is and always will be a murderer.
That might not be important to you, but it is important to me. All of them, they all think that you're a monster. But I know that you're not. You're not.
Philosophically speaking, the idea that all decisions are determined by previous causes is called determinism. Determinists don't really believe in free will. All actions are just consequences of previous actions. Each choice a person makes is impacted by previous life events. In a deterministic universe, concepts like responsibility and punishment don't really make sense, because if we're just a product of our past, then we don't really choose to do the things we do. And how can we be punished for something we didn't choose? Matt represents a different view of criminal justice, libertarianism, which believes in the ability to choose other than your determined nature. Libertarians are of the hopeful sorts. I mean, Matt literally wears rose-colored glasses. Matt presents an option whereby people can elevate themselves beyond their determined condition or environment.
Yeah, I can't do that.
It's what Matt is going on and on about on the roof with the Punisher.
What about hope? Oh, fuck.
About the redemptive spark inside of a person, where someone isn't all bad, that they can choose of their own free will to be different. While Matt is supposed to be the example to prove determinism wrong, Matt has the devil inside him, whatever that means.
Be careful of the Murdock boys. They got the devil in.
He wants to kill people like Fisk, but he chooses not to. Does he act of his own free will, or is Matt merely unfree in his Catholicism?
It's not Frank's decision who lives or dies. That's up to God.
Is his choice not to kill the Kingpin a decision that he makes freely, or does he merely make this decision based on the events that led him to accepting Catholicism and all of its precepts? Part 2, Justice and Vigilantism.
Lawyer by day, vigilante by night. How does that work?
Vigilantism causes controversy because the vigilante, being outside the legal system, doesn't have authority to distribute punishment. There's no due process or impartiality. Vigilantism is common in comic books, but in most cases the hero isn't in a position to be harmed by being outed as a vigilante. Elektra is silly rich, Bruce Wayne and Tony Stark are billionaire playboys, Superman can get shot in the eyeball and be fine. Matt Murdock, on the other hand, is a blind defense lawyer who gets paid in bananas and pies. There is actual risk for Matt if people find out who he is. It's part of why the Daredevil is the man without fear. Matt's motivation for risking so much is echoed by a Thurgood Marshall speech from 1992 about dissenting against fear.
We must dissent from the indifference. We must dissent from the apathy. We must dissent from the fear.
While Justice Marshall may not be calling for vigilante justice, he is calling for an end to fear and apathy, to not turn a blind eye to injustice. Though vigilante violence is still extra-legal, the question, what makes a person good, is a central idea of the show. And while it's a little heavy-handed,
I keep asking myself if there's really a difference between someone who saves lives and someone who prevents lives from needing to be saved at all.
They make it clear that Matt Murdock is just a bad day away from becoming Wilson Fisk or Frank Castle.
You know you're one bad day away from being me.
Most superhero narratives play up the cliche of good and evil. There's a pure, heroic protagonist and a corrupt and vile antagonist. In Daredevil, however, this elementary distinction is blurred by Kingpin, Stick, Elektra, and the Punisher, who all occupy moral gray areas.
Good and evil. Sometimes the delineation between the two is a sharp line. Sometimes it's a blur.
They don't set out to do evil. They validate their decisions by appeals to a greater good. For the Kingpin, it's the glory of his city. For the Punisher, he's merely doling out justice. For Stick and Elektra, there's a great war between the chaste and the hand that they have to deal with. What separates Matt from Karen, the Punisher, and the Kingpin is faith. Matt is a Catholic, whereas all the others profess that they aren't religious.
You religious, Karen?
My parents were.
You Catholic? Once. I'm not a religious man.
Orphaned after the death of his father, he's raised by nuns, attends church regularly, and makes an effort to be a good man.
Let's see if we can find you a better way to live in Hell's Kitchen.
Which is funny because Matt chooses to dress up like the devil and kick the shit out of people. And so for Karen, the Punisher, and the Kingpin, there's nothing besides the corrupt law to keep them from killing. No divine law that makes taking life unjust. Each season, Matt tackles different adversaries, but the actual enemy doesn't really matter. What matters is Matt's struggle with his inner devil, with his desire to bring justice to his city by any means necessary, except killing. Matt is a good Catholic boy who likes hurting people, but has a real problem killing people. Something about thou shalt not kill?
You couldn't kill me yourself. Is that where you draw the line?
Except that he doesn't choose not to kill. He kills Nobu 3 times, but conveniently forgets about it every time he does so. He lights him on fire, he throws him off a 3-story balcony, and then he chucks him off a roof. And at no time does he express any guilt for doing so. So maybe he does have the devil in him? Part 3, Criminal Justice. A great example of the dichotomy of Matt's relationship to the law happens early in Season 1, when he exercises his ability as a defense attorney to defend a murderer he knows is guilty, then turns around and doles out some street justice as soon as he leaves the courthouse, or how he fights the Punisher and then defends him in court in Season 2. There's a constant refrain from characters in the show, and that is, Daredevil's tactics as a vigilante are half measures.
Half measures, Matty.
I think you're a half measure. I think you're a man who can't finish the job.
Fisk argues that what's dangerous about Matt is not that he wears a cape or a mask. Daredevil is dangerous because he believes one man can make a difference.
You think one man in a silly little costume will make a difference?
For Fisk, it's only through sweeping structural changes that come about through influence, power, money, eating the same omelet every day, that real change can take shape.
A city needs to die before it can be reborn.
Fisk's argument is echoed by both the Punisher and Stick, that Daredevil's vigilantism is insufficient. Matt plods through life like his father, a boxer who slides through life taking on each opponent one by one, fight by fight. For Stick and Punisher, Daredevil's insistence to not kill limits his ability to effectuate change.
How many men have you killed protecting this city? You're still afraid to cross that line.
Daredevil's perps end up back on the street to continue to rape, kill, and murder.
We both know I'll be back out by the end of the month.
In many ways, the yellow seen everywhere can be read as more than just an homage to the primary colors of the comic books. It speaks to what Daredevil's frenemies imply, that the devil of Hell's Kitchen is really a yellow-bellied coward.
You should have just killed me, you coward.
In a criminal justice sense, Daredevil justifies his actions through a utilitarian approach. His idea of justice relies on rehabilitating, incapacitating, and deterring the criminal. Punishment is justified by a forward-looking prediction to stop future harm for the sake of all society. An action is just only if it advances one of these goals, like imprisoning the Kingpin and the Punisher. Sure, there isn't due process, a jury, or a judge, but this is a question of philosophical justification. Daredevil does what's needed in a predictive sense. He protects the neighborhood by beating the shit out of people. Whereas the Punisher represents a more retributive concept of justice, which closely aligns with a more Kantian approach to justice.
Where's this asshole's hand?
For Immanuel Kant, it's not a question of protecting society based on the consequences of punishment. Retributive justice is concerned with people getting what they deserve. Punishment isn't used to help society so much as it is assure that a person gets what they are due. In fact, for the retributivist, it would be unjust or immoral to do otherwise.
He wanted justice, Foggy, like us.
It's similar to the concept of an eye for an eye, or lex talionis, a system of justice which requires the infliction upon a wrongdoer of the same injury he has caused another. So yeah, the Punisher punishes people. Whether it's the Kitchen Irish, the Dogs of Hell, or members of his ex-military outfit. Punisher acts to right the wrong done to his family. There's no legal recourse, he just does. He ensures that people get what they deserve. Conclusion. Daredevil presents the story of a conflicted hero, torn between his duty to the church, the legal profession, and his desire to stand up for those that are unable to stand up for themselves. Sure, Daredevil may be a Batman ripoff, but it did generate the source material to create the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. While all this is great, what makes Daredevil a phenomenal series is that at its heart, it's a show about kicking ass. In a hallway, in alleys, stairwells, living rooms, and cell blocks, it just kicks ass.
And he just plain kicks ass.
Hey Wisecrack, thanks for watching. This episode was made possible in part with the support of MileIQ, so big thanks to them for sponsoring the show. If you make a lot of driving trips for your job or business, you're going to want to check out this app. MileIQ works automatically. I don't think there's really anything out there that makes tracking, categorizing, and reporting your mileage this easy. You just drive and it logs your trips, making it really easy to then review your trips and categorize them with just a swipe. You can even set up MileIQ to automatically send monthly driving reports right to your email. With that, you're ready to deduct mileage for your taxes or submit an expense report to your job. MileIQ makes it easy to just put more money in your pocket. And the other two big things for me are that, one, even though it runs in the background, it doesn't hog your battery. Battery use is actually super minimal. The other big thing is your data is never sold or shared. So be sure to check it out for yourself. It's absolutely free to try. Just download the iOS or Android MileIQ app and swipe to categorize each drive. The app takes care of everything else. And in support of Wisecrack Edition, MileIQ is giving y'all a special offer. Go to mileiq.com/wisecrack and you'll get 20% off an annual subscription. Or just sign up monthly to start tracking your mileage and putting more money in your pocket. And we're working on more great stuff for y'all, so be sure to click here to go to our channel page and subscribe. You'll be notified the second new videos are released. In the meantime, I've got a video on the Joker to work on, so catch you next time. Peace.